welcome to day number 4. Welcome to day number 7.
Day number 12.
Welcome to Do It Heartily.
Hey everybody, I've decided to start a new study. It'll be from the book of Proverbs again. We're going to be in Proverbs 18, and I'm just going to go verse by verse through this book, or through this chapter. Really, and I chose that because I think it's a profitable study, but it's also something that we can kind of start and stop at any time. And so, the thing about the book of Proverbs is it's really hard to kind of outline that book. Most of the Proverbs are just one verse or two verses are linked together, and then it moves to a completely different idea. And so it's not easy to outline like any other book of the Bible that's a stories or that has the epistles or anything like that. So having said that, preaching through the book of Proverbs, or through any proverb for that matter, is difficult because it's such a short statement, and then you try to spend time talking about it. It can be kind of difficult to do. And but the problem with the book of Proverbs is that you don't understand the book of Proverbs. That's our problem. And a lot of times, I know when I was a teenager, I would go and read the book of Proverbs, and I would read 30 of them a day and not think about any of them. I mean, and I don't know if that's been your experience or not. When you read any of the Proverbs, we read them real quick because they're in a chapter, and then we don't take time to really think about any of them and it's hard to do because they're separate thoughts. Like one proverb is not connected to the other proverb that's in the same chapter a lot of the times, and so that can be a little bit of a problem for us in trying to understand the book. And understanding not just the book of Proverbs, but the individual ones. And we probably will not make it all the way through chapter 18, but we're just going to go verse at a time, maybe 2 verses, depending on how it goes. And so you can go ahead and go to Proverbs chapter 18, verse number 1. Our title for today is A Fool's Fight. Okay, how many times have you ever heard that expression, a fool's errand? What is a fool's errand? A fool's errand is someone taking on a task that is 100% going to fail. Okay, it is not something that is going to be successful. It's a fool's errand. Okay, you're going on to try to do something that's not going to be successful, and it's kind of stupid for you to do that. You're a fool for trying to do it. It's a fool's errand, and so I took that thought and made it into our title. It's a fool's fight, a fight that is completely unsuccessful. And if you are engaged in this fight, you're going to be unsuccessful. You're going to be a fool, which is what verse 2 tells us. And so a fool's fight. Look at Proverbs chapter 18. Let's look at verse number 1, and then we'll open up in prayer. I'm actually going to read verses 1 and 2. We will talk about verse 2 next week. But let's go ahead and read verses 1 and 2. He who separates himself seeks his own desire. He quarrels against all sound wisdom. And then verse 2, a fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. So these two are kind of coupled together. There's some thoughts I'll put together next week for you, but we're just going to focus on verse 1 today. A fool's fight, what he's quarreling with. And so, okay, so what I want to ask you first of all, before we even get into it, is that you would go ahead and commit. All right, and I probably should have said this before the prayer, but you need to commit to think about this proverb for you. Okay, this is the most practical book in the entire Bible. I mean, it is. It just lays it out there, and the book of Proverbs tells us how to do it. Okay, and so the title of this study is "Don't Be a Fool." Okay. So let's not be a fool. Let's learn how to live, and let's take these proverbs. Every one of them, you need to take to heart for yourself. Don't think, oh, I'm not a fool. You will be surprised. All right. And I have been surprised even from this first verse as I've studied it. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to uncover the meaning of this verse. And so what I'm going to do is there are 4 words that I want to talk through and make sure you understand the meaning of those. And really, that is key to understanding any proverb, is you've got to understand what those words mean and what pictures those Hebrew words give us. Okay, and that's not where our problem is. A lot of times we read them and we don't understand really the picture that the poet is giving us. And so we want to be able to understand those things. And so that's my goal, is to uncover the meaning for these and then say, okay, now that we know what it means, what does this look like in my life? So let's look at the first little phrase there. He who separates himself. Okay, what does this mean? First of all, this is someone who separates himself from other people. Okay, there are a lot of interpretations on what this verse means, and to be honest with you, the Hebrew behind this is kind of difficult. People have landed different places. We're not going to get into that. But this is talking about, the way I understand it, is a person who isolates himself, who distances himself or herself from other people. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're separating from other people. Okay, we're withdrawing from people. And the next thing that you need to understand about this word, and the English brings this out for us, is that it is a reflexive verb. A reflexive verb is a verb that someone does to themselves. Okay, and so you see it in the translation there, he who separates himself. So nobody is separating him from someone else. He is doing it himself. And so that's kind of what the word reflexive means. And we don't talk about it too much like that in English, but we have ways of getting that thought across in English, which is what we've done. He separates himself. So it's reflexive. It's something that he does to himself, and that's going to be important for us because this shows the person's attitude. Okay. Next is that you need to see that he is isolated from people. He isolates himself from people because he is following his own counsel. He who separates himself is seeking his own desire, and he's quarreling against sound wisdom. And so we're going to talk about this as we move through it, but he's isolated because he's not following conventional wisdom. He's not following after tried and true ways to live life or the way to do anything. It doesn't have to be a super spiritual thing. You know, Proverbs is an extremely spiritually practical book, but it's just practical in just everyday life. And this is not even a super spiritual, if you know what I'm saying, type of thing. It could be someone who takes his own counsel about how to try to fix something, and he's just being stubborn about it, and he's not following the right way to do it. Okay, he's following his own counsel, and finally here is that we've already said it's reflexive, so he's doing it to himself, but it's something that he is willingly doing and obstinately doing. He's stubborn, even when people try to intervene and try to talk some sense into this person. They don't listen. Okay, they withdraw themselves. They isolate themselves. They don't listen to other people because they think that they know best. They think that they've got it figured out. They think they're right. And that hurts their relationships with people. And because of that, they isolate themselves. They withdraw. They separate themselves. Okay, so he who separates himself. Hopefully that, it's a pretty simple idea. A big thing is that he does it to himself, and he does it willingly and obstinately. He's stubborn. Okay, so now let's move to the second part of this phrase. He who separates himself seeks his own desire. Okay, so we're going to talk about that word desire. This is a word that means pleasure. It means something that is a lusting, something that is a longing. It is something that you desire. It's something that you delight in. It's something that you want. And it's not always used in a bad way. It's much like, the way I understand it, it's much like the New Testament term for lust. That's usually used in a negative way, but it's not always a negative word. You can have good lust, but usually when we use the word lust and we want to use it in a good way, we say desire, okay? And lust kind of has that bad connotation to it. But it's the same way with this word in the Old Testament. It's a pleasure. It's something that you delight in, something you long for, you lust after. It's not always bad, but it most certainly can be. And in this context, it is bad, okay? It's used in a negative sense. But it goes a little further than that, okay? And we really need to get this. This is the realization of these desires, Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. Is that this is a person who seeks his own desire. He doesn't just desire the wrong things. Okay, she doesn't just take pleasure in the wrong things. This is a person who diligently seeks and goes after and gets those pleasures, those desires. They make their desires realized. They make them real. They get them. And so, like I said, there's a big difference in wanting something and then actually going and getting it. And so if you think about something negative or sinful that you want or desire, it's almost like you take it, it's like a different level to actually go and get that and participate in that or whatever it may be for you. And this person does this. Okay, this person separates himself. They seek their own desire. They're going after what they want, their pleasures. It is all about what they want. Okay, it's not. They don't have a care for other people, and so because of that, they separate themselves. Right? They think they know best. They're going after what they want to go after. It's all about them. It's all about what they want, and they don't really care about what other people think. They don't care about what other people want for them, or what other people want. They're not concerned with other people's desires at all. They're concerned about their own pleasure, and they're concerned about getting that. And they don't. You can see how that attitude is going to hinder your relationships with people. That's why this person separates themselves, because of this. Their struggle with other people. They've got the wrong mindset and they've got the wrong attitude, which we're going to see when we get down through this. And I've kind of said this here, but this is someone who goes after his own pleasure instead of following after the wisdom of the community or of other people. Now, let me just stop and just kind of say this. You need to be careful about going your own way, okay? And before we move on, I want to be careful that you understand what I'm saying, okay? Especially with young people. There is a desire to kind of kick against conformity. You don't want to be like everybody all the time. Like, if you go out and you get a brand new pair of shoes, you go to school or whatever, and 3 people have that same pair of shoes, it's probably going to dampen your spirits a little bit. It's like, oh man, I'm just like them. There's a part about being a teenager that you want to be yourself. You want to be an individual. You want to stand out from the crowd. And that's not a bad thing, okay? It's not. And that is not what this is teaching. It is okay to do that, all right? And this is not talking about, let me say this. There are times in your life where you're going to have to be committed to do the right thing, to do what you think is right, regardless of what other people think, okay? The community may think a certain way about you if you make a certain decision. And if you think that decision is right, you've got to have the backbone to make that decision. Even though the other people may, put pressure on you not to do that. That's not what this is talking about. What this is talking about is going after foolish pleasures, and you don't give a rip about anybody else. You don't care what they think. You don't care about them. That is what Solomon is warned against here. And so you need to be careful about going your own way. When you go against good, sound wisdom, which we're going to talk about in a second, you need to be extremely careful.